Professor Wergely's here finishing up the New York Times Viewer. This is one of the best application for your final project. It should be ready to go. Let's see if it works. Let's run the project. Here we go. Okay, it took some time to load. Here's what it looks like. Bum, 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 bum. Look how beautiful this is. Okay, if I make it a little bit bigger, it looks even better. I have some default text. I didn't type this. I run the app. You'll see it selected and focused on the first story, and it loads it for the user. If I select another story, look at this. It loads the article for me. Okay, so I can load the article. Instead of University of Missouri, I can just type in Missouri, hit search. You'll see it clears out that list and loads the first article for me. Okay, so if I click on some information, I can click on different stories. I don't really know where or what these stories are. I'm just loading whatever's on the New York Times. But look how nice this looks. And most of it is a web view. I'm just taking the data from the New York Times and loading it. Okay, so I made this up at the top. Okay, I have news and help. You'll see my about page here, which opens up. The only thing that this doesn't meet as far as the final project is it doesn't have multiple scenes. Okay, it doesn't have multiple scenes. It has all the information. It's got a bunch of data. It uses an API, so it's got bonus opportunity here, not only with the API, but with the jar file. If you wanted to use an API in a jar file, you need to find your own. Some students use a database, but here's 10 bonus points with this application. Since I use an API and a jar file, this would take a lot of work to get something like this going. Now, the only thing that this doesn't meet is MVC, okay, which only would require a little bit of MVC. I have a clearly defined model, but I didn't correctly implement the MVC. I didn't use the fire property change. I'm passing the data back to the controller, which shouldn't occur, but the UI design looks good. It's well-structured code. Okay, it has error handling. It uses collections. I don't have multiple scenes, but I do have a dynamic scene. I have an about, but it would probably be better to create an about scene and actually make a scene, maybe make a YouTube video explaining your application so the TAs know. I'm loading data, but I'm not saving data. Saving data would be saving it to a database or the file system. So there are a few places where this falls short for the final project, but it's really close. Okay, it's really close, and you'll see how nice it is. I can type in stocks and hit enter. And it's really simple. That's what's so nice about this API is I have my articles here. It's the main headline. I click on something and it loads that article. So I think it's a little bit easier than the actual New York Times page. New York Times page is awesome. Don't get me wrong. They really spend a lot of time building out this user interface, but it's complicated. Okay, it's really complicated. You can see all these stories here. I got a bunch of stories. I got graphs. I got all these little squares. You know, for people who aren't very computer savvy or it's hard to see, they may not see these little stories. They may not know these are clickable. And there's a lot of content here. It's almost too much content. Okay, there's a lot of content here. Whereas this, it's simple. Type in what you want. Here's all the articles. Click it, and then you can read it very easily. Okay, you can read it very easily. So I think this has a purpose here. It's taking a complicated UI design, a complicated website, and making it easy to use. Okay, just a quick overview of the project. Okay, we have the controller, we have the main class. So when I go to New York Times Viewer, I pass over the stage. When I pass over the stage, I store the stage, and I also put an event listener for the list view. That way, when the page loads, it loads some default data for the user or for the grader to see. Okay, I use an observable array list, so I have plenty of collections. I have my model here. I'm using a web engine. A web engine is one of the easiest ways to get up websites and information, which takes little effort. Okay, so if I close this app and run it again, okay, you'll see it loads quickly. Okay, it really loads quickly. And you'll see how nice this looks. This is all from the New York Times. I didn't need to style this page. I didn't need to style the text. I'm using a web view, so it comes out really nicely. Okay, you'll see all the stories are printed out, so I have all the information. The URL is encrypted. Okay, it is encrypted, so it doesn't crash the page. It doesn't crash when I load. I load default data. You'll see I call the model. I tell the model to go to the API and load the search string. Once it's done, I come back and grab all the stories. I clear all the previous ones. I put all the new ones in, and I set the list view so the user can see them. And I have a nice user experience. As long as there's at least one story, I select the first one, focus on the first one, I scroll back up to the top. Because if I don't put this here, it'll be scrolled to the bottom. So let's say here I scroll to the bottom and I search a new string. If I don't put those lines of code, it will remain at the bottom. So I want to help the user out. Okay, make the UI experience good. You'll see handle search is an event listener. So when I click the search button, I go to the search text field and grab the text. If it equals empty, I give them an error. Let's take a look at this. So not only do you need to do exception handling, you need to do error checking. So if I do search, look what pops up. Okay, and this is what you need to do for your final project. Error. The search field cannot be blank. Enter one or more search words. Okay, that's important. So I'm checking for errors here. This is good. And if there is an error, I return. I don't load that news. So you see if it's good to go. And I can even check, this is just a symbol check. I can check to see if they actually have a word, which actually has a few characters. But if it's good, I grab the text and then I load the news. When I load the news, you'll see load news grabs the search string and tells the model to go to the API and load it. You'll see I have handle update, which is load the news. So let's say they're on University of Missouri and the app has been sitting there for a while. Let's say it's been sitting there for a day or so. And now I want to do an update. I can say update the current news. So I click on update and it grabs the new stories. Okay, for University of Missouri, there's not that many updates, or maybe the stock market or what's happening with the president. Okay, that may have a lot of updates. So you can update the current stories. President of USA. And what's cool is they can type in anything. Now, one thing that I would like to do is when they hit enter, so I'm hitting enter here, and it's not searching. I have to literally go over here and click the search button. So a good idea would be when they're in this text field, if they press the enter key, it calls the load news function. That would be a great user experience. So even this application could have some updates to it. When they're in the search text field, if they hit the enter key, go ahead and load the news. Okay, or call the handle search method, which checks the search string. You'll see handle about displays the about alert. If I scroll down, display the about alert is the about information. Some students use this, but I do recommend making your own scene, which can help you handle the multiple scenes requirement. You'll see the display exception alert displays an alert if an exception occurs, so it lets the user know what's happening. It would suck if I click go and it doesn't load the news, and it also doesn't tell me what's wrong. I just keep hitting go and nothing happens. I'll say, okay, this app has a bug and points will be deducted. So you got to make sure you display messages back to the user. And if an error occurs, here's another different alert. Okay, you'll see I have a different error message and different type of alert. So this is all the code. This is my controller. You'll see the controller is small. It basically tells the model to go and load the news. The model is where the bulk of the program is. Okay, you'll see it has a few methods. Okay, it has a few fields. You'll see the base URL or final. Also, the API key is final. And it has a default search string. You'll see I create the array list once the class is initialized to the constructor. I have a load method which encodes the URL search string. It actually loads the URL and grabs the JSON string. Once I have the JSON string, I parse it. When I parse it, I parse all the JSON object data as well as all the documents and put it into an array list. And I have a few more methods to get the array list and to get the number of stories. And you'll see the New York Times story is just a data type. For every New York Times story, I have a web URL, headline, snippet, lead paragraph, news desk, section name, and source. These are all private, so I'm using data encapsulation, and I didn't do that. I used NetBeans. When you're writing your final project, take advantage of NetBeans. It has a lot of built-in functionality, which will help you write code quick. And this is a great example of a final project. It's implementing an API. It's using an external jar file. It's missing some things. It doesn't have multiple scenes. It's not implementing MVC, but it's almost there. And that's why I really like this project to showcase for your final project. Okay, it looks good. It functions well. It has a good purpose. And this is a great example for your final project. Okay, final project's coming up. It's almost due. Make sure you're working hard and getting the final project done. And we're here to help you. If you have any questions or you need help or you wonder whether your final project is good enough or you need some ideas, stop by office hours. The TAs and I are here to help you. You just need to reach out to us. Okay, that's it for this lecture. I still got some cool stuff to show you for your final project and your final exam. Stick with Professor Wergeles, and we'll see you next time.